Daniel Hayes stood very still in the docking bay of the space station called Vanguard. His hands were at his sides. His eyes were fixed on the metal floor beneath his boots. Around him, 20 other officers stood in the same way. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They were all waiting for the aliens to arrive. The briefing had been very clear. The HFY were coming to meet with humanity for the first time. They wanted to talk about letting Earth join something called the Galactic Concord, a group of alien races that had been working together for thousands of years. This was the most important day in human history, and there was one rule that everyone had to follow. Do not look at the envoy. Do not look into her eyes. If you do, you will go mad. Daniel had heard stories about what happened to people who looked at the HFY. Some said they saw things that broke their minds. Others said they became empty shells, unable to think or speak ever again. The science officers said it had something to do with psychic energy, that the HFY had minds so powerful that lesser beings could not handle contact with them. Daniel did not know if any of this was true. He only knew that he had been given an order, and he would follow it. The airlock at the far end of the bay began to open. There was a hiss of air as the pressure balanced between the two ships. Then the doors slid apart, and the aliens walked in. Daniel kept his eyes down, but he could see their feet. They were tall, much taller than humans. Their skin was silver, and it seemed to glow with a soft light. They moved without making any sound, like ghosts floating across the floor. There were 6 of them in total. 5 walked in a group, and 1 walked alone at the center. Daniel knew without looking that this was the envoy. He could feel her presence like a weight pressing against his chest. The air around her seemed thicker, harder to breathe. Captain Lavra Mitchell stepped forward to greet them. She was a strong woman with gray hair and steady hands. She had commanded the Vanguard station for 10 years, and she had seen many strange things. But even she kept her eyes low as she spoke. "Welcome to Vanguard Station," she said. "On behalf of Earth and all of humanity, we are honored by your visit." The envoy did not respond right away. Daniel could hear her robes moving as she walked, a soft sound like water flowing over stones. She was looking at the officers lined up before her. He could feel her gaze passing over each one, studying them, judging them. Then she stopped. She stopped right in front of Daniel. His heart began to beat faster. He could feel heat coming from her body. Or maybe it was not heat, but something else. Some kind of energy that made his skin tingle. She was very close now. Close enough that he could have reached out and touched her. "This one," she said, thought her voice was strange and beautiful. It sounded like many voices speaking at once, like wind blowing through crystal bells. It filled the docking bay and echoed off the walls. "This human will be my escort during the negotiations," she continued. Captain Mitchell stepped closer. "Envoy, with respect, we have already selected a protocol officer for this duty. Lieutenant Commander Hayes is a tactical officer. He is not trained in diplomatic matters." "I have made my choice," the envoy said. There was no anger in her voice, but there was also no room for argument. "Unless humanity wishes to begin our relationship with an insult." The docking bay was silent. Daniel could hear his own breathing, loud and rough in his ears. He did not understand why the envoy chosen him. He was nobody special. He was just a soldier who followed orders. "Very well," Captain Mitchell said at last. "Lieutenant Commander Hayes will serve as your escort." The other officers began to move, leading the HFY delegation toward the conference rooms. But the envoy stayed close to Daniel. She walked beside him, matching his pace, and he could feel her watching him the entire time. "You are afraid to look at me," she said quietly. Her voice was softer now, meant only for him to hear. "I was warned," Daniel replied. He kept his voice steady, but his hands were shaking slightly. "Warned," she repeated. "How very human. You were told something is dangerous, and so you believe it without question. You do not test it. You do not challenge it. You simply obey. Daniel did not know what to say to that. He had been following orders his entire life. It was what soldiers did. They walked through the corridors of the station, past windows that looked out into the blackness of space. Stars glittered in the distance, like diamonds scattered across dark cloth. Daniel had always loved looking at the stars. They made him feel small, but in a good way. They reminded him that there was so much more to the universe than his own small problems. "You are thinking about something," the envoy said. "I can feel your mind moving." "I was thinking about the stars," Daniel admitted. "Ah." There was something like pleasure in her voice. "Your kind is drawn to them. You look up at the night sky and you wonder what is out there. You build ships to carry you across the void. You reach for things that are far beyond your grasp." "Is that bad?" "No," she said. "It is remarkable. Most species look at the stars and see only light. Humans look at the stars and see possibility." They reached the diplomatic wing of the station. The other HFY were waiting there, standing in a circle and speaking to each other in their own language. When they saw the envoy approaching with Daniel, they fell silent. He could feel their surprise and something else too, something like worry. One of them spoke to the envoy in their language. The envoy replied with a single word that silenced them completely. "They do not understand why I chose you," she said to Daniel. "They think I am being foolish. Why did you choose me?" Daniel asked. She did not answer right away. They stood together at the entrance to the conference room, with the stars shining through the windows behind them. When she finally spoke, her voice was very soft. "Because you did not look," she said. "Every other human in that docking bay wanted to look at me. I could feel their curiosity burning inside them like fire. But you wanted to look more than any of them. And yet, you did not. You held yourself still. You controlled your desire." "I was just following orders." "No," she said. "It was more than that. I have met many species, Lieutenant Commander Hayes. I have seen empires rise and fall. And I have learned that the most dangerous beings in the universe are not the ones with the greatest power. They are the ones who can choose not to use it." She turned and walked into the conference room, her robes flowing behind her like water. Daniel stood alone in the corridor, his heart pounding in his chest. He still had not looked at her face. He did not know what she looked like. But somehow, he felt like she had seen everything inside him. The negotiations were about to begin, and Daniel Hayes, a simple tactical officer who had never done anything special in his life, was now standing at the center of the most important moment in human history. He took a deep breath and walked into the room. 3 days passed on Vanguard Station. The negotiations between humanity and the Galactic Concord were long and difficult. There were many things to discuss: trade agreements, territorial boundaries, technologies that could change human civilization forever. Daniel attended every meeting, standing behind the envoy like a shadow. Her name was Selith Ara. He had learned this on the first day, when the other HFY addressed her. It was a beautiful name, he thought. It sounded like music when spoken aloud. She asked him questions constantly, not about politics or trade or technology. She asked him about humans, about their history, their wars, their art, their music. She wanted to know everything. "Your species has fought many wars against itself," she said one evening. They were walking through the station's garden, a small room filled with plants from Earth. The air was thick with the smell of flowers and growing things. "You kill each other over land, over resources, over ideas. Why?" Daniel thought about this for a moment. "I do not know if I can explain it," he said. "Humans are complicated. We believe in different things. Sometimes those beliefs are so strong that people are willing to die for them, or kill for them. But you also create beautiful things," Salithara said. She stopped beside a rose bush and reached out to touch one of the red flowers. You paint pictures. You write stories. You compose music that makes people cry. How can the same species do both? Maybe that is what makes us human, Daniel said. We can be terrible and wonderful at the same time. We have the capacity for great evil, but also for great good. The choice is always there. Selithara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Among my people, there is no such choice. We are what we are. We do not change. We do not grow. We have been the same for millions of years." That sounds peaceful. It is peaceful, she agreed. But it is also empty. There is no struggle, no conflict. And without struggle, there can be no victory. Without darkness, there can be no light. Daniel did not know what to say to that. He had never thought about it that way before. The other Kethvari watched these conversations with growing unease. Daniel could see them whispering to each other when Selithara was not looking. They seemed worried about something. On the fourth day, one of them approached Captain Mitchell in private. Daniel was not supposed to hear their conversation, but the walls on the station were thin, and his quarters were next to the captain's office. "The Envoy's behavior is unprecedented," the Kethvari said. His voice was low and urgent. "She has never shown such interest in a single individual before. We do not understand what she is doing. What do you think it means?" Captain Mitchell asked. "We believe she is testing him. Among our people, such focused attention is reserved for those being evaluated for something important. But we do not know what she is looking for. Is it dangerous?" "We do not know," the Kethvari admitted. "The Envoy has her own reasons for everything she does. She does not share them with us." That night, Daniel could not sleep. He lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything he had heard. What was Selithara testing him for? Why had she chosen him out of all the humans on the station? He got up and walked to the observation deck. It was a large room with windows that looked out into space. The stars were bright and clear, and the distant glow of the Milky Way stretched across the darkness like a river of light. He was not surprised when Selithara appeared beside him. She moved so quietly that he never heard her coming. But somehow, he always knew when she was near. He could feel her presence like warmth on his skin. "You are troubled," she said. "I heard the others talking about me," Daniel admitted. "They think you are testing me." "They are correct." Daniel turned his head slightly, but stopped himself before he could see her face. "Testing me for what?" Selithara did not answer right away. She stood beside him, looking out at the stars. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, softer, more real. "You have not looked at me once," she said. "In all my years, I have never met anyone with such discipline. Your kind burns with curiosity. I can feel it inside you right now, the desire to see my face. But you deny it. Why?" "Because I was told it would destroy me," Daniel said. "And I have a duty to my people. If looking at you means I cannot fulfill that duty, then I will not look, even if it causes you pain." Even then, Selithara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that changed everything. "Your species is young. You have only been among the stars for a short time. In the history of the universe, you are barely a flicker. And yet you possess something that even the oldest races have lost. What is that? The ability to choose your own limits. To stare into the abyss and decide, not out of weakness, but out of strength, that you will not blink first." Daniel felt something twist inside his chest. He did not understand what she was saying, but he could feel the weight of her words. "I am going to tell you something now," Selithara continued. "Something that no outsider has ever been told. The Kethvari do not drive other species mad with our gaze." "That is a lie." Daniel's heart stopped. "What?" We spread that story to test those who seek to join the Concord. Those who look upon us out of greed, or fear, or weakness. They reveal their true nature. We see into their souls, and we judge them. But those who can resist, who can stand beside us and choose not to look, they prove something far more valuable. And what is that? That they are worthy. Daniel stood very still, trying to process what he had just heard. The entire basis of the negotiations, everything he had been told, all of it had been a lie. A test. So I could have looked at you this whole time, he said slowly. And nothing would have happened to me. Nothing bad, Selithara agreed. But if you had looked, you would have failed the test. You would have shown that your species cannot control its desires. That you are slaves to your curiosity. But I did not look. No, you did not. The stars glittered outside the window. Daniel felt like the universe had shifted around him, like everything he thought he knew had been turned upside down. What happens now? He asked. Now, Selithara said, the real test begins. She turned and walked away, leaving Daniel alone on the observation deck. He watched her go, her silver form disappearing into the shadows of the corridor. He still had not seen her face, but for the first time, he wondered if maybe it was time to look. The next morning, the alarm started. Daniel was in his quarters when the red lights began flashing. He jumped out of bed and ran to the command center, where Captain Mitchell was already giving orders. The main view screen showed something that made his blood run cold. Ships were coming out of hyperspace. Dozens of them. They were dark and angular, covered in weapons. And they were not Kethvari. Who are they? Someone asked. One of the Kethvari advisors stepped forward. His silver face was pale with fear. The Vorith, he said. An ancient enemy. They were supposed to be extinct. But they were not extinct. They were here. And they were coming for humanity. Daniel watched the enemy fleet approach, and he knew that everything was about to change. The test Selithara had spoken of was no longer about discipline or self-control. It was about survival. And humanity was about to show the galaxy what they were made of. The command center was filled with noise and chaos. Officers ran back and forth, shouting orders and checking systems. On the main view screen, the Vorith fleet moved closer. There were 47 ships in total. The largest ones were bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Captain Mitchell stood at the center of the room, her face calm but her eyes hard. She had seen combat before. She knew what was coming. All stations report, she ordered. Shields. At full power, someone called out. Weapons online and ready. Fighter squadrons standing by. Daniel stood beside Selithara and the other Kethvari. The aliens looked frightened, which scared Daniel more than the enemy fleet. If beings as powerful as the Kethvari were afraid, then the Vorith must be truly terrible. Tell me about them, Daniel said to Selithara. The Vorith. What are they? She did not look at him. Her violet eyes were fixed on the view screen, watching the dark ships approach. They are consumers, she said. They do not destroy bodies. They destroy minds. They reach inside you and take everything that makes you who you are. Your memories, your thoughts, your dreams. They add it all to their collective consciousness. Like a hive mind? Worse, a hive mind is many becoming one. The Vorith are one that wants to become everything. They have consumed thousands of species, millions of worlds. They were supposed to be gone. We destroyed their homeworld 100,000 years ago. We thought we had won, but you did not. No, they survived. They hid. And now they have returned. The lead Vorith ship opened a communication channel. The view screen flickered, and then a face appeared. It was not really a face, Daniel realized. It was a mass of shadows and eyes, constantly shifting and changing. Looking at it made his head hurt. People of Earth, the Vorath said. The voice was deep and cold, like something speaking from the bottom of a dark well. You have been deceived. The Concord does not seek allies. They seek slaves. They want to use you, to control you, to make you fight their wars. Captain Mitchell stepped forward. We have made no alliance yet. These negotiations are still ongoing. There will be no negotiations, the Vorath said. The HFY are liars. They have manipulated you from the beginning. Join us instead. We offer freedom. True freedom. An end to conflict. An end to struggle. Join our collective, and you will know peace forever. The channel closed. The fleet continued to advance. Daniel turned to Selithara. Is any of that true? Have you been manipulating us? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, We have not told you everything, but we have not lied. The Vorath offer peace, yes, but it is the peace of death. When they consume a mind, that person is gone. What remains is just an echo, a ghost that serves the collective. There is no freedom in that, only emptiness. Then why did they not attack us before? Why wait until now? Because of the negotiations, Selithara said. They knew we were coming to Earth. They wanted to wait until we were here so they could destroy us both at the same time. Captain Mitchell turned away from the view screen. Can we defeat them? The HFY advisor shook his head. Our ships are not designed for combat. We are diplomats, not warriors. And the Vorath are very difficult to fight. Their psychic attacks can overwhelm even the strongest minds. What about humans? Daniel asked. Can they overwhelm us? Everyone looked at him. Selithara tilted her head slightly, as if she was seeing him for the first time. That is an interesting question, she said. The Vorath have never encountered humans before. Your minds are different from any species we have seen. You are chaotic, unpredictable. Your thoughts do not follow patterns. It is possible that... She paused, thinking. It is possible that they cannot consume you. Why not? Because they cannot understand you. The Vorath consume by finding the core of a mind, the central pattern that holds everything together. But human minds do not have a single core. You are fractured, divided. You hold contradictory thoughts at the same time. You believe things that do not make sense. You are, in a way, already broken. Daniel was not sure if that was an insult or a compliment. So our greatest weakness might be our greatest strength. Perhaps, Selithara said. But we do not know for certain. No human has ever faced the Vorath. Captain Mitchell made a decision. Then we will find out. All hands, battle stations. Launch fighter squadrons. Prepare for combat. The station came alive with activity. Pilots ran to their ships. Weapons crews loaded missiles and charged energy cannons. Daniel started to move toward the tactical station, but Selithara caught his arm. There is something else you must know, she said. Her voice was urgent, almost desperate. Something I did not tell you before. What is it? The reason I chose you. The reason I have been watching you so closely. She took a deep breath. I was looking for someone who could resist the Vorath. Someone with a mind strong enough to fight them. You think I am that person? I do not know, but I believe you might be. The way you controlled yourself, the way you resisted looking at me, it showed a kind of mental strength that is very rare. If anyone can stand against the Vorath, it might be you. Daniel felt the weight of her words settle onto his shoulders. He was just a tactical officer. He had never done anything special. He was not a hero, but maybe that did not matter. Maybe what mattered was not who he was, but what he was willing to do. What do you need from me? He asked. Fight, Selithara said. Fight with everything you have. Not for the Concord. Not for us. Fight because you are human. Fight because that is what your species does. When everything seems lost, when all hope is gone, humans do not give up. They push back. They refuse to accept defeat. The station shook as the first Vorath weapons hit the shields. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Outside the windows, Daniel could see explosions blooming in the darkness. "I have to get to the command center," he said. "I know." Salithara released his arm. "Daniel, before you go, look at me." He hesitated. After all this time, after all his discipline, she was asking him to do the one thing he had refused to do. "Are you sure?" "Yes, I want you to see me. The real me. Before the battle begins." Slowly, Daniel raised his eyes. For the first time, he looked at Salithara's face. She was beautiful. Not beautiful in the way humans understood beauty, but something deeper, something older. Her face was silver and smooth, with high cheekbones and a small mouth. Her eyes were pools of violet light, filled with stars and shadows and centuries of wisdom. Looking into them, Daniel felt like he was falling into infinity, but he did not go mad. He did not lose himself. He simply saw her, really saw her, and she saw him back. "Now you know," she said softly. "Now you understand." "Understand what?" "That there was never anything to fear. The only thing that was holding you back was yourself." Daniel nodded slowly. Then he turned and ran toward the command center, ready to fight for his species, for his planet, and for the strange alien envoy who had shown him what he was truly capable of. The battle for humanity had begun. The first wave of Vorath weapons hit the station shields with enough force to knock Daniel off his feet. He grabbed a handrail and pulled himself up, then continued running toward the command center. The corridors were filled with smoke and flashing red lights. Officers rushed past him, some heading to their stations, others carrying wounded to the medical bay. When he reached the command center, Captain Mitchell was already coordinating the defense. On the main view screen, human fighter ships were engaging the Vorath fleet. The small human craft darted between the massive enemy vessels, firing missiles and energy weapons. Some of the Vorath ships were taking damage, but more were pushing through, getting closer to the station. "Hayes, take the tactical station," Mitchell ordered. "I need someone who knows what they're doing." Daniel slid into the chair and pulled up the combat display. His training kicked in immediately. He could see the patterns of the battle, the movements of both fleets, the weak points in the enemy formation. "Our fighters are doing well against the smaller Vorath ships," he reported. "But the big ones are barely scratched. Their armor is too thick for our weapons." "Then we need to find another way," Mitchell said. "What about targeting their engines? Their weapon systems?" Daniel studied the display. "The engines are protected. But look here." He pointed to a spot on one of the enemy ships. "There is a gap in their armor plating. It is small, but if we could get a precise shot through there, we might be able to damage their internal systems." "Can our weapons make that shot?" "Not from this distance. We would need to get closer. Much closer." Mitchell thought for a moment. Then she opened a channel to the fighter squadrons. "All pilots, this is the captain. We have identified a weakness in the enemy ships. I need volunteers for a close-range attack run." The response was immediate. Every pilot volunteered. Daniel felt a surge of pride in his chest. That was what made humans different. When things got bad, they did not run. They got closer. The attack run was successful. 3 human fighters made it through the enemy defenses and fired directly into the gap in the Vorath armor. One of the massive enemy ships exploded in a ball of fire. The other Vorath vessels pulled back slightly, surprised by the sudden resistance. But the victory was short-lived. The Vorath adapted quickly. They changed their formation, covering the gaps in their armor with overlapping fields of fire. More human fighters were destroyed. The station's shields began to fail. "We are losing this fight," Mitchell said grimly. "We need a new strategy." Before Daniel could respond, alarms started screaming from the lower levels of the station. A new voice came over the intercom, panicked and afraid. "Boarding party. Deck 7. The Varth are inside the station." Daniel jumped up from his chair. "I will handle it." "Hayes, wait. You are needed here. No one else knows the tactical situation as well as I do. But I can explain it to someone else in 5 minutes. The boarding party needs to be stopped now, or we will lose the station." Mitchell hesitated, then nodded. "Go, but be careful. We do not know what the Vorth are capable of up close." Daniel grabbed a rifle from the weapons locker and ran toward Deck 7. The corridors were darker here. Some of the lights had been damaged in the attack. He moved carefully, checking each corner before proceeding. He found the first body near the entrance to the engine room. It was a young officer named Kevin Park. Daniel had known him for 3 years. They had played cards together every week. Kevin was still alive, but his eyes were empty. He stared at nothing, his mouth hanging open, his breathing shallow and slow. Whatever made Kevin who he was, it was gone. The Varth had taken it. Daniel felt anger rising inside him. Cold, hard anger. He tightened his grip on the rifle and moved deeper into the deck. He found the Varth in the main engineering bay. There were 6 of them, tall and twisted creatures with too many limbs and too many eyes. They were surrounded by fallen humans, all of them with the same empty expression as Kevin. The lead Vorth turned to face Daniel. It was bigger than the others, and its many eyes glowed with a sick purple light. "Another one," it said. The voice was inside Daniel's head, not his ears. It echoed through his thoughts like a cold wind. "Come to join your friends. Come to become part of us." Daniel raised his rifle and fired. The energy bolt hit the Varth in the chest, but the creature did not fall. It did not even seem to feel the shot. "Your weapons cannot hurt us," the Vorth said. "Your minds cannot resist us. You are weak, fragmented, broken." "Yeah," Daniel said. "I have heard that before." The Varth struck, not with its body, but with its mind. Daniel felt something reaching into his head, cold fingers trying to find the core of who he was, trying to pull him apart. And for a moment, he felt himself slipping. His memories began to scatter like leaves in the wind. His thoughts became confused. He could not remember his own name. He could not remember why he was fighting. But then something else happened. Instead of finding a single core to attack, the Varth's mind touched 1,000 different pieces. Daniel's love for his sister, his fear of failure, his pride in his uniform, his doubt about his own worth, his hope for the future, his anger at the enemy, his wonder at the stars. All of these things were separate. All of them were contradictory. And the Varth could not consume them because they did not fit together. There was no pattern to follow, no thread to unravel, just chaos. The Vorth pulled back, confused. "What are you?" "I am human," Daniel said. And he attacked, not with his rifle, not with his fists. He attacked with his mind. He pushed back against the Vorth's psychic assault, flooding the creature with his thoughts, his memories, his emotions. He showed it everything he was, all the broken pieces that did not fit together, all the contradictions that made no sense. The Vorth screamed. It was a sound that Daniel felt more than heard, a psychic shriek of pain and confusion. The creature stumbled backward, its many eyes flickering wildly. The other Vorth hesitated. They looked at their leader, then at Daniel, uncertain what to do. Daniel did not give them time to decide. He raised his rifle and fired again. This time, the shot hit the lead Vorth in one of its many eyes. The creature fell. The remaining Vorth turned and ran. They fled through the corridors, heading back toward their breach point. Daniel chased them, firing as he went. 2 more fell before they reached their ship. By the time security teams arrived, the battle on Deck 7 was over. Daniel stood alone among the fallen Varth, his rifle smoking, his mind still buzzing from the psychic contact. Selithara found him there. She walked through the carnage without looking at it, her eyes fixed on Daniel. "You did it," she said. "You resisted them." "I did more than resist," Daniel said. His voice was hoarse. "I heard them. They could not consume my mind. It did not make sense to them." Selithara nodded slowly. "I knew it. I knew humans were different. But I did not know how different until now." "Will it work against all of them? Against the whole fleet?" "I do not know. But if it works for you, it might work for others. Your species might be the weapon we have been looking for. The one thing in the galaxy that the Varth cannot consume." Daniel looked down at the fallen aliens. Then he looked back up at Selithara. "Tell me what to do," he said. "Tell me how to save my people." She smiled. It was the first time he had seen her smile, and it transformed her face completely. She looked almost human in that moment. "Rally your forces," she said. "Tell them what you learned. The Varth can be beaten, and humanity is going to show the galaxy how." The words spread through the station like fire. The Varth could be beaten. Their psychic attacks did not work on humans. For the first time since the battle began, there was hope. Daniel returned to the command center and explained what had happened. He told them about the Varth's attempt to consume his mind. He told them about the chaos inside him, the broken pieces that did not fit together. He told them that human minds were too fragmented, too contradictory, too stubbornly individual to be absorbed. "Our greatest weakness is our greatest strength," he said. "We are not unified. We do not think the same way. We argue and fight and disagree about everything. But that is exactly why they cannot consume us." Captain Mitchell listened carefully. Then she opened a channel to all stations. "Attention all personnel. Lieutenant Commander Hayes has discovered a way to resist the Varth. Their psychic attacks cannot overwhelm human minds. We can fight them. We can win this." The effect was immediate. The fear that had been spreading through the station began to fade. People stood straighter. Their eyes grew harder. They were no longer victims waiting to be consumed. They were soldiers ready to fight. The Varth fleet must have sensed the change. Their attacks became more desperate, more aggressive. They fired everything they had at the station, trying to break through the shields before the humans could organize a counterattack. But it was too late. Human fighter squadrons launched from every hangar bay. They flew directly at the enemy fleet, no longer afraid of the psychic assault. Pilots reported that the Varth tried to reach into their minds, but the attacks bounced off like rain against a window. Daniel coordinated the battle from the command center. He directed squadrons to hit the weak points he had identified earlier. He sent bombers against the largest ships. He organized rescue teams to save pilots whose ships were damaged. Selithara stood beside him, watching the battle unfold. Her face was calm, but Daniel could see the wonder in her violet eyes. She was seeing something she had never seen before. She was seeing humanity fight. "You are magnificent," she said quietly. "In all my years, I have never witnessed anything like this." "We are just getting started," Daniel replied. The tide of the battle began to turn. Human ships destroyed one Varth vessel, then another, then 5 more. The enemy fleet started to retreat, pulling back from the station toward open space. But the humans did not let them go. They chased the Varth, hitting them again and again. Then something unexpected happened. A second Varth fleet appeared on the edge of the system. 50 more ships, fresh and ready for combat. Daniel's heart sank. They had been winning, but this changed everything. The humans were exhausted. Their ships were damaged. They could not fight another fleet. "We need reinforcements," he said. "Is there anyone we can call?" Salithara shook her head. "The nearest Concord forces are days away. They cannot reach us in time." Daniel stared at the view screen, watching the second fleet approach. This was it. This was the end. They had fought so hard, but it was not enough. Then Captain Mitchell said something that surprised everyone. "Open a channel to Earth." The communications officer hesitated. "Earth is 30 minutes away by signal. By the time they respond, it will be too late." "I do not need a response. I need to send a message." Mitchell stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. "All stations on Earth and throughout the solar system. This is Captain Laura Mitchell of Vanguard Station. We are under attack by an alien force called the Vorath. We have discovered that human minds can resist their psychic assault. We need every ship capable of combat to launch immediately. I do not care if it is military or civilian. I do not care if it is a warship or a cargo hauler. If you can fly and you can fight, we need you here. Now." The message went out. And then there was nothing to do but wait. A second Vorath fleet closed in. The human fighters formed a defensive line around the station, ready to make a last stand. Daniel gripped the edge of the tactical console, his knuckles white. "It has been an honor," Mitchell said to her crew. "Whatever happens next, remember that we showed them what humans are made of." Then the sensors detected something. Ships coming out of hyperspace. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Daniel stared at the view screen in disbelief. They were human ships. Freighters and patrol boats and mining vessels and pleasure yachts and everything in between. 1,000 ships from every corner of the solar system, all of them flying toward the battle. "They heard us," someone whispered. They all heard us. The civilian fleet crashed into the Vorath like a wave against rocks. The alien ships, expecting tired military vessels, were suddenly surrounded by hundreds of small craft that swarmed around them like angry bees. The Vorath tried their psychic attacks, but nothing worked. Every human pilot shrugged off the assault and kept fighting. The second Vorath fleet began to crumble. Their ships were not designed to fight enemies they could not consume. Without their psychic weapons, they were just ships. And humans had been building ships for centuries. One by one, the Vorath vessels fell. Some exploded. Some were captured. Some tried to flee into hyperspace, but human ships followed them, hunting them down wherever they ran. The battle lasted for 3 more hours. When it was finally over, not a single Vorath ship remained in the system. Daniel sat back in his chair, exhausted beyond words. Around him, officers were cheering, hugging each other, crying with relief. But he was too tired to celebrate. He had given everything he had. Salithara knelt beside him. Her silver face was close to his, and her violet eyes were filled with tears. "You did it," she said. "Your species did what the entire Galactic Concord could not do in 100,000 years. You defeated the Vorath." "We had help," Daniel said weakly. "You told us what they were. You gave us a chance. I gave you information. What you did with it was entirely human." She reached out and touched his face gently. "The Concord will hear of this. Every species in the galaxy will know what happened here today. Humanity is no longer a young race stumbling through the stars. You are warriors, defenders, perhaps the most important species in existence." Daniel closed his eyes. He thought about all the people who had died today. All the pilots who would never come home. All the officers like Kevin Park who had been consumed by the Vorath. The victory had come at a terrible cost. "It does not feel like victory," he said. "Victory never does," Salithara replied. "Not the real kind. The stories always talk about glory and triumph. But those who actually fight, they know the truth. Victory is just survival. It is standing up after everything has tried to knock you down. The cleanup took days. Funeral services were held for the fallen. Repairs began on the damaged ships and stations. Messages poured in from Earth and every human colony, celebrating the victory and mourning the dead. A week after the battle, the negotiations resumed. But they were different now. The HFY no longer treated humanity as a young species seeking entry into the Concord. They treated them as equals, perhaps even as leaders. Salithar made the formal announcement in the main conference room. On behalf of the Galactic Concord, I welcome humanity into our alliance. Not as junior members, but as full partners. Your courage, your resilience, and your unique nature have proven your worth beyond any doubt. The galaxy needs you, and we are honored to stand beside you. After the ceremony, Daniel found Salithara on the observation deck. She was standing at the window, looking out at the stars. He walked up beside her and looked out as well. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we rebuild. We prepare. The Varth are wounded, but they are not destroyed. They will return eventually. And when they do, we will need humanity to lead the fight." Daniel nodded slowly. It was a heavy responsibility, but he was no longer afraid of it. "There is something I want to ask you," he said. "Back at the beginning, you told me not to look at you. You said it was a test. But even after I passed the test, I still did not look. Not until you asked me to. Why did you wait so long?" Salithara smiled. "Because I wanted you to choose. I wanted it to be your decision, not mine. That is what makes humans special. You always have a choice. And you always choose to fight." Daniel turned to face her. This time, he did not look away. He met her violet eyes and saw everything she was, all the wisdom and power and ancient beauty. "Thank you," he said, "for believing in us, for giving us a chance. Thank you for proving me right." They stood together at the window, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with enemies and challenges that humanity had never imagined. But they were not alone. They had allies now. They had a purpose, and they had each other. The universe had warned Daniel not to look at Salithara. It had told him that some things were too powerful, too dangerous, too beyond human understanding. But he had looked anyway, and in doing so, he had found something worth fighting for. The stars glittered in the darkness, and humanity at last had taken its place among them.